If we allow the left to attack so dramatically our Second Amendment rights, when only a very, very small fraction of gun owners ever do anything wrong, the vast majority do it right, why are we allowing them? Why aren't we going after them on the First Amendment? I'm Dr. Duke, and this is Constitution Corner. And Constitution Corner is one of those features that I get very excited about every week. It allows us to apply the Constitution to current events. Far too many people in America, I think, see the Constitution as kind of an old-fashioned document, something that may have meant something 250 years ago but doesn't have a whole lot of application for today. And here on Constitution Corner, we want to pluck headlines right from the news and plug them in to our Constitution, which should be our guide. It should be our roadmap. It should be our satellite in the sky, if you will, that guides us as Americans in terms of what we should believe and how we should believe it and how we should implement what we believe. And today, the news is overwhelmed by yet another example of fake news in the media. We have the Brett Kavanaugh scandal redux. Part 2 seems to be a never-ending story for the progressive left. We know for a fact that the New York Times rushed to publish faulty information about Kavanaugh, citing witnesses that weren't really witnesses, citing people who saw things that actually don't remember having been there. All of this, I think, as a result of a new book by, among other people, Molly Hemingway, which exposes the Kavanaugh trial for what it was, an angry and last-ditch attempt of the progressive left to sully the name of a potential Supreme Court justice who, at least according to his earlier record, is Catholic and may indeed have suspicions about the legality of Roe versus Wade. And in Molly Hemingway's book, she makes it very clear that all of this Kavanaugh kerfuffle of a year ago was primarily about protecting Roe versus Wade. It didn't matter if there were legitimate complainants. It didn't matter that Blaisley Ford herself was erratic in her testimony from 30 years ago, that nobody corroborated her story. The New York Times, almost as a reaction to Molly Hemingway's book, which blew the lid off this, came out with more fake news in which they said there was a witness, and the witness that turned out not himself to remember, and just all kinds of corroborating information. You would never have run this story if you had a functioning journalistic editorial board, which apparently the New York Times does not have. And what does this have to do with the Constitution? Well, in the First Amendment, the Constitution absolutely guarantees freedom of the press. And I like to make the observation that if the freedom of press was treated by the left like the freedom to own guns and possess guns as the Second Amendment is treated by the press, why are we allowing the progressive left to attack guns because guns are violence, to attack guns, attack the Second Amendment because people shouldn't own guns? You got Beto O'Rourke, right, who's now calling for a mandatory buyback. How's that for an oxymoron? It's mandatory, but we'll buy them back for. It's kind of like jumbo shrimp or icy hot. It's one of those things that does not exist in nature. If the federal government is using its power with the implicit use of force behind it to take your guns and force you to sell your guns back to them, then it is by no means a buyback. It is a confiscation. Why are we allowing the progressive left to beat up our Second Amendment rights when they are equally perverting our First Amendment rights? If the press is not free, if the press is not doing its job, if the press is using its protections under the Constitution to spread fake and false information, to lie about people and individuals, to dredge up evidence that's not evidence, to ignore exculpatory evidence, which clearly the New York Times did in this latest round of reporting on Kavanaugh. If they're doing that, are they not abusing the First Amendment the same way they say that psychopaths who get guns abuse the Second? The left's attitude towards Second Amendment abusers, the occasional mass shooting, is that this has got to stop. We have to take away your Second Amendment rights to protect the lives of people. There's a problem here, but when it comes to the wounds that are inflicted upon the constitutional republic by the fake news that comes from the protected progressive media class, this strikes me as every bit as dangerous. People may not initially lose their lives as in a shooting, but think about the kind of harm and damage that the lying press is doing, shielded under the First Amendment by providing this kind of demonstrably fake news. They are ripping a hole in the fabric of American society. They are undermining our faith in our institutions. They are attacking, using the status to attack innocent people at the highest level of government, in this case, Brett Kavanaugh, trying to impeach him after the fact with still no real meaningful evidence, trying to deny the man due process and have him impeached even after he's made it to the Supreme Court. Got to ask ourselves a question. If we allow the left to attack so dramatically our Second Amendment rights, when only a very, very small fraction of gun owners ever do anything wrong, the vast majority do it right, why are we allowing them? Why aren't we going after them on the First Amendment? If you can't do your job correctly, and there are many more fake news sites than there are people who abuse guns in this country. If you're going to do that, maybe we should consider tit for tat. Maybe we should push back on you and say, tell you what, you come after the Second Amendment, we'll come after your First Amendment rights of freedom of speech if you can't exercise them responsibly. Now, of course, we as constitutionalists would never take away that First Amendment right, but it's an interesting question, isn't it? Why there is this disparity in leftist outrage doesn't make a lot of sense. So please, honor the Constitution by understanding it. You can go to thenewamerican.com and jbs.org for more information and more shows.